Yeah, just to it so it looks clean, but not a big deal. All right, hello everyone, and by everyone I mean no one. As we wait for people to come on, sorry for the confusion with the first stream, but here we are. I'm at your service. We're going to be talking about preparing for your first competition. I think one of the biggest things that people get wrong is first and foremost, they think that they're not at their peak level of strength ever, so I just don't want to compete yet. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you should know before going into your first contest, and then what it actually looks like preparing for it, going into it, what the day looks like, and making sure that whoever's out there who's on the edge of maybe competing or not feels a little bit more comfortable to get themselves out there, because as anyone in the strength community can attest, it is one of the most welcoming environments to be a part of, particularly at the local level. It is so special seeing how much competitors cheer each other on, how open to everyone doing well everyone is. So we are going to get into all of that. Before we do, go ahead, click that like button. Just delaying a bit, getting some more people on, but go ahead, click that like button. Leave a moose, drop me if you have nothing else to say. A little bit different whiteboard series this time. I am just going to talk to you guys for a couple of minutes before I kick in. So please interact with the video, like it, leave a little moose dropping. If you have any specific questions about competing for the first time, I will take a quick look before I go over to the whiteboard. Hello from Maine, Strongman Sully. And Jeremy, it's a genetic condition. Okay, balding is a serious problem that many men face. Amazing. Joseph did his first comp last month, made you fall in love with the sport even more. Amazing. That's fantastic. It's very cool to see when people first get started into strongman or into strength sports in general. It's really cool to see the change in their behavior and their attitude, not just the change in how much they can lift. Um, so yeah, that's one of the most special bits, and particularly I think for women, they walk into the gym the first time, and oftentimes they're a bit nervous and they don't want to go, to maybe some of the more intimidating areas of the gym. And you give them 6 months of strongman strength sports, it's like night and day. The confidence increase is amazing. 2 minutes, 15 seconds. I'm going to start talking about competing in your first competition. Bronze up recovery and prep is going fairly well. Recovery is getting there. Now that I've committed to doing the shows, I'll share a little bit more about what happened. I just was sort of in between whether I was going to do them or not. I hurt my back when I was in Orlando at an event, and one of those that it took me probably a week to start walking properly again, and then tried to get back into hinging. And the first time I got back into deadlifting was a week and a half ago, and from 18 inches I was capable of 5 plates. So I was in a bit of a bad way, and still in the mornings I have a hard time walking, but once it warms up, it's much better. So prep won't have been perfect, but I think my body will be back at 100% by the time I get in Glasgow. So little stumbling blocks that we all come across. All right. And yeah, hamstrings back to 100% for everyone wondering. No issues at all with the hamstring anymore. All right. Why don't we get into it? So just so you guys know, I'm going to go over the whiteboard. I'm going to end it and hop over to the member side so that I can have a chat with the members, answer all the questions. I won't be able to answer any of your questions here. I'll do them all on the other side. But hopefully I can answer those for you without you having to ask them. And we can sort you out that way. All right. So really, first competition. And I think if you're someone who has competed, you can really extrapolate this to competing full stop. There is, Quinn, can you check? Has this come up backwards?
No, you're okay.
So there's 2 components to this. There's the physiology And there is, let's do it in a different color. You do it in red. And there's the psychology. Okay, those are really the only two things you need. Wow, already my marker's going. Those are the only two things you need to be able to be ready for a competition. Now, it's easier said than done, but when you put it that way, it makes life a little bit easier. All right, so the physiology is something that we focus on a lot, and there's a lot of talk put behind how do you physically prepare, how do you program yourself into your first show or into a show in general, where basically you got to go look at events, identify your weakness, train to be well-rounded. Now, this is important because we don't want to get hung up on, it's probably really hard to read, train to be well-rounded. We don't want to get hung up on, okay, we're doing a strongman competition, I just want to be as strong as possible, because sometimes it's actually not about being strong. Sometimes it'll be about muscular endurance, or it'll be about technique. And so that's why you've got to look at the events, identify your weakness, train to be well-rounded. It's not going to be the same for every competition. On the psychology side, if we have a graph of performance and of arousal, we have this interesting bit where if we're not very aroused, performance suffers, say you're sleepy. If we're hyper aroused, performance suffers because you're just going to be so erratic. Shout out to every man right now who loves me using arousal. So we got to find this happy medium where we can maximize our performance because our arousal is right in between our negative potential performance effects. So how do we get there? First, it takes a pretty good level of self-awareness. Things like anxiety, how much you care, time and energy, things like crowds, things like cheering. How does that affect you? And it really gets back to our sympathetic nervous system and fight or flight. Right now, we always think of fight or flight, but there's one more. Fight, flight, or freeze. It's not unusual for someone to be anxious, to care a lot, to put a lot of time and energy into preparing themselves, be in front of a crowd for the first time who's cheering for them, and all of these factors lead them to freezing. Now, it's not freezing as in they can't do anything, but you're second guessing yourself on your log presser. You don't put the same aggression into your deadlift. And so your self-awareness now has to revolve around who are you? And who you are is going to be really come down to, are you generally under aroused, or are you generally over aroused? Now, for me, I know that I tend to have a very easy time getting up. And if I focused on getting myself up in energy for an event, I would actually suffer for that, because now I'd be over aroused, I'd be a little bit erratic. And any time that I really get myself worked up, my performance actually goes down. And so I take all my energy and I think, how do I calm this down? And how do I make sure that I'm executing and performing? Now, this gets to your intention. Your intention when you're lifting. If you're someone who is under aroused, your intention could be aggression. It could be building into the moment. Okay, you could do this with music. You could do this with smelling salts. You could do this with back slaps. There's a lot of different ways that you can have the intention of really hyping yourself up. But if you're someone like me, where say you speak in front of a crowd and you can get yourself like sweaty and nervous and in a very anxious spot, well, then we got to focus on this other side. And we got to go, aggression becomes execution. Building into the moment becomes steadying emotions. And controlling environment is a big one. Now, the controlling environment bit is really, really important because there's certain things that we can control and certain things that we can't control when it comes to a strongman competition. Now, I'm going to focus mostly on the people who are generally over-aroused. Because in the end, when we're in front of a crowd, when we're working hard, when we put a lot of time, we care. There's people watching us who we care about. We don't want to look stupid. Generally speaking, we're going to be over-aroused. So let's just take that side away, and let's just go controlling focus, okay, is really the definition of intention. So control focus and control environment. Now, we don't really have the ability to control our environment per se. The competition is what it is. The number of people there are what they are. That's not going to change. But what you can change is how you feel about those people and how you feel about them watching you and how you feel about competing against people. Because you got to dive down psychologically and go, well, what am I so nervous about? Why do I care that in the gym, I just love training, and in competition, I get very nervous? A large part of that is like, when else in life do you actually go, I'm objectively going to find out if I'm better than you or you're better than me? And the thing is, in a strongman show, in any sort of endeavor where we're comparing ourselves to people, if you only compare in this silo, well, if someone is very, very good, it's going to be hard for you to get that out of your head and say that they're not just better than you altogether. It's really hard. Then like you're in your own head about it. One of the best ways to get that out of your brain is to meet people. So my number one piece of advice when someone is extra nervous going into a show is go meet every single person that you're going to compete against. This way they become human. You might meet their partner, you might meet their family, you might see like World's Strongest Man, when he doesn't cut his hair, he looks like freaking crumbed up. Sometimes we're good at things, sometimes we're not good at things, and you just got to think about competing as one silo in which you're either good or you're not, and you're just there to really have a good time and find it out. Now, one of the really, really important things is you'll have people who say, I want to go to World's Strongest Man. I want to be World's Strongest Man. I want to go to Giants Live. I want to represent my country. And they'll be worried about competing at their first local show. In the end, we're limited by our genetics, and you have to appreciate that you can't get to a place where genetics don't allow. And there's very few people who are lucky enough to get to a level of Giants Live, of World's Strongest Man. The way that you're going to find it out is going and competing. And the thing is, if you're someone who's destined and you could be World's Strongest Man, you could go to your first local show, perform very poorly, and you will still win. You could go to a state show, perform okay, and still win. Okay, those are the people who are going to ascend. If you need to be at, really peaked into a show, you need to be mentally prepared. You need to have your proper gels and fuel, and you need that for a novice competition to do well. It's unlikely that you're going to be all the way up at World's Strongest Man level. So my advice is don't worry about it. You'll find out along the way how far you can take it. And the important thing is, in the whole journey, you are going to find out what you are capable of. And that's really all that matters. So self-awareness and intention are the two bits of psychology that are going to be most important. One, who are you? Are you someone who's under-aroused or over-aroused? And we need to work to counteract that with our intention. Our intention has to be controlling focus and controlling environments. The controlling the environment is controlling how you feel about the people around you. Okay? Find out that they're imperfect, and it'll do a lot for you. Now, with the physiology, let's just go into this a little bit more. So we're looking at the events, identifying our weaknesses, and trying to be a well-rounded athlete. But of course, programming doesn't begin and end there. So let's say show day is down here. And here we are 12 weeks out. Here we're 9 weeks out, 6 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 1 week out. Okay, now let's go sets, reps, and let's just use RP for now. Okay, important that we have a broader plan going into the show. Now, one piece of advice I'll give is that you should have a strongman day involved in this. That strongman day doing a couple of events. You can break your strongman day up into a couple of days. That way you can cover all the events and not have a massive, massive day. But you should be doing every single one of your events leading into the show. Now, let's assume that it's a very heavy show, that just simplicity, we're going to say everything is a max. Okay? Now, sets and reps. This is going to be an oversimplification, so apologize for that, but we're just going to talk about main movements. So let's say main movement, number of sets. Oh, no. Sorry, Ash. Number of sets, 12 weeks out. Let's go 8 total sets. Okay, this is between all of your major movements. Reps, we could probably go 5, and effort, let's go at a 7. Okay, 8 sets of 5, probably something like 3 sets of, say, deadlift, 3 sets of rack pull, and 2 sets of power shrugs. Something along those lines. Doing 5 reps, RPE is 7. As we work down into the show, we're actually going to drop the number of sets that we're doing total, and we're going to drop the number of reps. Now, we're just assuming that these are going to be heavy events, right? We're assuming that we're preparing for all 1 rep max type events. And your RPE is naturally going to creep up over the weeks, okay? This is the basis of progressive overload. And we probably shouldn't go above a 9. Okay, 9 is probably where we should be happy sticking. In your deload week, we're going to do same type of sets as our peak. As our 3 weeks out, we're going to increase reps. We'll go maybe 3 to 5. The important bit here, though, is we're going to work at about a 6 out of 10. Okay, going to be very, very easy. On show day, of course, you're just doing the show. Important things to consider here. Effort increases, reps decrease, number of sets decrease. Your intensity is going up, your total volume is going down. So if you train for strongman all year and all you did was very, very heavy with very low volume, you're going to run into body composition issues. There's no way that you could build any sort of muscle mass or foundation for improving long term. And that's going to run you into issues long term. Now, that's a separate programming discussion, which we actually did a live on last week. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. But that is how you should prep into your shows. The number one mistake that people make is they'll go, well, into a show, I want to be strong, I want to be fit, I want to be working hard. So they increase the number of sets, they'll decrease the number of reps, and they'll increase the number of RP. We cannot do that. You cannot increase your volume and your effort, your volume and your intensity. Okay? Volume and intensity are juxtaposed. The more intensity you'd like to introduce, the less volume you're able to handle. And this is why people who are stronger train less than people who are not as strong. Because in the end, we have a nervous system, we are human beings, and that training volume has to go down over time. So that is the physiology and psychology of competing. I hope that's helped you guys out. I'm going to pop over to the member section. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. As per usual, let everyone be kind, and we will see you soon.